yourself, your business, your family, and most importantly, GP. We're talking about SmackDown. We might as well bring in the SmackDown Women's Champion. That must be exciting to hear still. Becky Lynch. How are you, Becky?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
Does it still feel good reading and hearing SmackDown Women's Champion?
Yeah, unbelievably so. I still can't get over it. Every time somebody calls me champ, I giggle.
It's got to be unbelievable because your story, and by the way, I'm Peter Rosenberg. I'm with Stat Guy Greg, of course, and the Brian Campbell, who's up at ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. It's your story is so long. I mean, there are some NXT stories that are people who, were there for a brief amount of time and made it to the roster, and there are some people who are true indie wrestlers, and NXT was just the final stop on their way to the WWE. Your road was so long. Was there ever a point in which you thought, in all likelihood, this is never going to end with me being the women's champion?
So there was so many doubts, and so many times when it was just like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. But there was always a voice in the back of my head or in my gut that knew that it was gonna happen and that it had to happen, you know what I mean? It was like there's no way that everything that has happened can't lead to a happy ending. You know what I mean? It was just there were sometimes when I would get like so low and be like, I don't know what more I can do. I don't know how much harder I can work. I don't know how many more sessions I can do in the gym that's gonna get me to that title belt. But there was always, no matter what, there was always just something in me that said it would happen. But when you keep struggling, you keep fighting, you keep grinding, and nothing's happening, sometimes you go, maybe it just won't. But then there's just that little voice in the back of your head that goes, but maybe it will.
What was the worst setback? I know there's probably at least one day that stands out the most of the one where you're like, okay, I am so far away from this happening. Do you remember one moment that was worst?
Well, you know what? There's probably two that stand out to me. And are we talking about on the main roster?
No, just in your whole ride all the way to the top. I mean, all the different places you were. I know, like, you stopped and started before. You went away from wrestling and kind of, like, trained and came back. At any point along the way where you just thought this overall dream of being a star in wrestling is not going to happen?
Oh, there was a few. Like, there was a few. I remember being at an NXT one time, and I hadn't debuted yet, and I was just like, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know how much harder I can work. I don't know what else I can do. And I just remember, like, being in tears, just being like, I want this so bad, and I think sometimes when you reach that point, that's when everything comes around, It's like pulling back an arrow, you know what I mean? It's got to get to that stretching point before it can, like, fly off.
Do you ever have
that's a good metaphor for it.
Do you ever have the feeling, and like, I at least have this in my world because I happen to occupy a very random space in hip hop radio, where when I meet young people who ask me, they're like, I want to do exactly what you do. I almost have this really bad feeling, like, I come up with all the positive stuff to say, start an online show, I guess, do a podcast, I don't know, I tell them all this stuff, but in my mind, part of me goes, man, I am so lucky to have made it to my little spot. I almost feel for anyone going for that goal. The wrestling universe is so small. There are so few spots. Do you ever have that feeling when people are like, how do I do it? Like, good luck.
To be honest with you, no, I don't get like that. Like, oh, good luck, because it was really hard for me to get here. I go, if I can do it, anybody can do it. There is no way I should have gotten to where I am today. Like, I failed PE, for crying out loud. I failed PE. Who fails PE?
You literally failed PE?
I literally failed PE. My mom came into the school. She left in tears because the PE teacher was giving out to her that much about how little I would do. I just refused to run. I failed PE. I hung out with a bad crowd. You know, when I was growing up, I was a chunky kid. I was pretty average in most things that I did. But when you have a drive and you have a love for something and you have a passion for something, there is no reason, if you really work towards it, and you know what, more than physically, way more than physically, it's a mental game. It's completely a mental game about, like, just picking yourself up and as cheesy and as corny as it sounds, just believing in yourself, you know, believing that you can do it. And if you can do that, and if you can silence the voices, if you can get positive about every little opportunity that you get, because I see sometimes, like, and this is the one thing that I think throws people off, is that they'll find something to complain about with the opportunities that they get, as opposed to being like, oh, I've got this, I can do this, and seeing the world in a bunch of possibilities. And if you can do that, if you can change your mind to do that, really, and I sound like I'm like doing a motivational speech, but really, if I can do it, anybody can do it, and you can.
You know,
it is, but it's so funny. I remember like even being a rosebud for crying out loud, that was like, I was like, yes, I've got this, I can do this, I can do this, or whatever. It was just a matter of getting any tiny opportunities. I would be delighted with them. I would want to run with it. You know what I mean? And I think that was what helped me get to that championship that I won two weeks ago. You know, and it really was just being just taking opportunities and running with them, instead of being like, oh, but I want this, but that person's getting that. Oh, and comparison is the worst.
You mean like looking at what other people are getting or doing and comparing it to yourself?
Yes, absolutely. If you're going, oh, but that person got that by this stage, and blah 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 blah, why didn't I get that? I should get that. Whatever. Like, don't look at anybody else. Just be like, no, because you got your own biography, and the harder the setbacks are, the better the biography. Who wants to read a biography about somebody who just like sailed right through everything, and then they had a steak dinner and everything was lovely and they just waltzed up? No, you want to read about the hardships. You want to read about the trials and tribulations that lead to the triumph. That's what makes things interesting.
God damn, Becky, that's a promo. Yeah. You should cut that next Tuesday on Alexa Bliss in the middle of the ring. All right, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. Mick Rouse from GQ wrote an article titled "The 4 Women Saving Wrestling" about you, Charlotte.
The 4 Horsewomen,
the 4 Horsewomen, yeah. And you ended up being the only one of the 4 on SmackDown. Now, do you feel any pressure from that, being separated from the core 4?
I feel, yes, I do. I feel a bit of pressure, but I also feel it gives me a lot of delight, you know, and it makes me really happy, and it makes me excited. And I feel like hopefully I've been put in a leadership role, and that's what I want to do. And I want to make SmackDown the women's division to watch. I want to make it the women's division that people care about and they get emotionally invested in, and I want all of us, you know, to shine, and all of us to be superstars, which I think we are. So and I'm so excited about the division there, because I feel like it's so fresh. You know, we've got Alexa and we've got Carmella, who've just come up from NXT, who I think are going to do great things. We've got Naomi, who's developed a new character, which is amazing. Her entrance, I can't help. Anytime I'm in the ring and she comes out, I got to dance, and I'm not a dancer. We've got Nikki, who has come back from an like a career-threatening, life-threatening injury, and she's getting thrown into barricades and taking electric chairs and doing all this mad stuff. It's mind-blowing and it's inspirational. And then we've got Natalya, Nadia, who is just a complete veteran, amazing in the ring, and who is also developing this new character. So it's all fresh, it's all new. I'm excited. And the great thing is that, you know, we're all going to be doing this for a long time. So this is such an opportunity now. The brand extension has been such an opportunity for everybody across the board to get more opportunities, more spotlight on them. And then when all the four horsewomen reunite, I think it's just going to be fireworks.
Are you? Which one of the?
That's going to happen.
Yeah, no, of course, and eventually it'll be one of those moments that we know is going to happen. But when it eventually happens, is so special. Which one of the young women that you came up with, is there one that stands out the most whose work just blows you away?
Of the four horsewomen?
Yeah, and or anyone else who you came up with, but they are who I had in mind, certainly.
You know what? Charlotte is just, she blows my mind. You know what I mean? And her work, her heel work is just incredible. You know what I mean? Like people hate her.
I know.
They hate her. So the people, you cannot, like, especially knowing Charlotte, she's one of the sweetest, loveliest, most genuine people. And just the fact that she can get the crowd to despise her at that level is unbelievable. And the people can't love the baby face unless you've got that heel that they hate. So she's doing an incredible job and makes anybody who's a baby face just shine. You know what I mean? And you get so much more sympathy and everything because everybody just wants you to beat Charlotte because she just gets people to hate. And she's just an incredible, she's a workhorse. You know, I traveled with her, I trained with her. She's unbelievably strong, like incredible strength. She's got such endurance, she won't stop. You know, they say always be the hardest worker in the room, you know, and you got to compete with Charlotte to be the hardest worker in the room.
Charlotte, and by the way, what a true point about how sweet she is in real life. And it's actually it goes against what you always hear, which is that, like, be the person you are and just turn it up a little notch, and that is the great character you will get. Obviously, you know, the bravado of Charlotte exists in Ashley Flair, the person, but what you get on television, I mean, what we talked about here that was so amusing when we were in Brooklyn for SummerSlam weekend, when Bayley came around and hugged all you guys after her last match in NXT, the crowd booed when she hugged Charlotte.
Yeah. But like, and that thing is that, like, so Charlotte helped everybody so much by being so great at what she does, and it's all her little mannerisms and everything. She just embraces that role like nobody's business. Like, really, she doesn't care. She doesn't want to be cheered, you know. And it's just great, you know. And they do say, that is find a little bit in you, you know. And okay, I've seen Charlotte when she's tired or hungry, and maybe, or sorry, I've seen Ashley when she's tired or hungry, and maybe a little bit of Charlotte comes out. So, and maybe that's where she's drawing inspiration from.
Can you speak?
It's genuine. Damn.
Can you speak to how hard Charlotte is working on her butt behind the scenes? Because her squat game is really serious. She said you of all people would appreciate this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, squat days.
All right, Greg, go ahead.
No, I just want to know, are there any women, whether they're in NXT or somewhere around the world, that you would like to see on SmackDown, besides the 6 that you already have with you?
Well, I'm excited for Asuka to come up. I'm excited for Billie Kay and Peyton Royce. I hope they can come up to SmackDown. That would be amazing.
What has been the craziest part over the last 6 months? I mean, the fact that you are now the face, I mean, you are the main face of the SmackDown women's division has to be, I'm sure, just an unbelievable thing that your family's very proud of. But what has been the craziest thing that's happened along the way over the last 6 months?
My goodness, like, one, WrestleMania was pretty, like, unbelievable, you know what I mean? Has that been in the last 6 months?
Yeah, that's right there.
Yeah, 6 months. Yeah, 6 months. So, somebody was asking me what was a higher point. Was it WrestleMania or was it Backlash? And it's hard, it's pretty good tie because being at WrestleMania, changing the title over, stealing the show, arguably, maybe not so arguably, headlining the event, showing up and seeing my big orange head on AT&T Stadium, like, all of that is just, like that's mind-blowing. Like somebody failed PE and their head is on the side of AT&T Stadium and headlining WrestleMania and like I said, arguably stealing the show. And then from going to the one that could never quite get us to finally being the first SmackDown Women's Champion, and that title belt is beautiful.
I love it. I mean, people did not give enough credit to the new Raw title when it was presented, and
there was no questions about the SmackDown.
Yeah, the SmackDown Women's title looks awesome. You must be so psyched.
It's so pretty. Like, I swear to God, I'm like Gollum, you know what I mean? Like, I never realized how much I'd want it, and now I'm like, oh, my precious. You know, like, I'm just like...
Well, it's not the same as a regular object, right? Like, it has so much more meaning, and it's such a funny thing to talk about with non-wrestling fans because, someone who doesn't get it, you can argue about, like, well, what does the title really mean? It's like, well, no, though it's not actual competition in the way you're thinking of. The title still means everything, and so it's a really, really special thing to have. I wanted to give you a special compliment, which is that, I try to be pretty straightforward. I'm like, listen, Greg, I constantly pat myself on the back. I actually believe that I started the Divas Revolution myself, but I am big fan of women. I'm a big fan of women's wrestling. And when you came along, Becky, I did not get it. I came on here and was like, I don't know. I just don't understand what the character is. I don't know if she's ready for the light yet. And I know why I said it at the time, and I get why I meant it at the time. But, you can take that for what it is and think that I'm a jackwagon. But I'll tell you right now, I understand exactly why you're in the spot that you're in. You've done an amazing job. And even from last week to this week, I goofed on you last week because you made some sort of weird sound when you were screaming and celebrating that I thought was hilarious. Even from last week to this week, your level of comfort and how you owned the title this week, that segment you did with Alexa this week, the Brian Campbell just talked about it. I mean, I think so far, you've had great matches, but the way you owned it in the ring this past Tuesday was a crowning moment for me. I know it's just the beginning, but just know that in someone who does this, quite a bit and loves this business so much, I've watched you in my eyes become awesome over the last 6 months, and you should be really proud of that.
Thank you so much.
I mean, listen, I'm just some hack on the radio. But anytime you make a fan go from someone who's like, I'm not sure. Because, listen, you're a mark too, right? Like, there are characters that I'm sure at some point you're like, I don't get this character. Why this? And then when it clicks for you, it's a special feeling. And now one of my favorite things is Becky Balboa. I mean, yeah. I think it is you. That is you. Everything you've said during this interview to me is like a brilliant promo. And actually, if I had my druthers, and secretly, I think the WWE hears everything we say here. I want to hear more of that in the Becky character. Like, we get it somewhat, but to be honest, the reason I had that critique of your character early on was you're a lass kicker. It's a really cute name, but what does it mean? This story, your trial is what it means.
And I'll completely agree with you. I was the last kicker that was never kicking any last.
Exactly, and now I'm like, I get it. She has worked harder. Alexa Bliss, you just got here. What are you going to be doing with the title? That is what your character should be saying. And then the funny thing is, I also thought about for this week, as amazing as you are as a babyface, because of your accent and how big and strong you are, I do look forward to you as a heel. Does that ever cross your mind?
Oh, 100%.
Because it's pretty appealing. It's pretty. You have a lot of tools there.
Yeah, and I'm excited for when that day comes. I don't know that day's going to come anytime soon. It's if we can talk openly here, like that's always the struggle, because a lot of the time when you know the babyface, you've had that struggle to get the title, and then you get the title, and the crowd's like, yeah, okay, now what next?
Mm-hmm.
What next? You know what I mean? So it's one thing to get there. And it's one thing to get the crowd behind you when they're like, come on, Beck, just come on, just get it. And now that you've got it, it's another thing to keep them there. So it's gonna be fun, and I'm excited to develop my character from here, as a babyface, and then we'll see what happens next.
Do you like any?
Not anytime soon.
Do you like any American sports?
American specifically?
Yeah. Well, actually, do you like sports? Period. I mean, you failed PE.
Failed PE.
Yeah. So I don't know what sports you like in general.
She doesn't like track. She doesn't
The only
run.
thing I'll watch is MMA.
And
It didn't matter.
what did you think of the last McGregor-Diaz fight?
Yeah, it was good. Can I ask? Do you think?
Yes.
Actually, I'm just giving my. I feel like Diaz held back. Don't you? Do you know what I mean? Like I feel like he wasn't hitting him as hard as he could. I wonder if he just wanted to make it go to
the third one.
To fight number 3. Yeah.
Wow, hot take from Becky Lynch.
I'll have to rewatch it now through that lens.
Were you offended at all about? I mean, listen, I don't care what anyone says. I know McGregor was working. He obviously sees that at some point he could try to make money with the WWE. But was any part of you offended or annoyed by what McGregor said?
Look, McGregor is a businessman through and through. He's obviously a wrestling fan. He's always used wrestling quotes in promos and stuff. He quoted Steve Austin. He used a wrestling line to offend wrestling. He knows what he's doing.
Very well said.
He's using wrestling style promos, and it's gotten him to where he is today. He's just being a smart businessman. Fair play to him for it.
Did you watch? I'm not gonna call it a match, but did you watch the CM Punk situation that occurred a couple weeks ago?
I did.
Was it hard to watch? Did you wince at all? Because a lot of wrestling fans kind of winced at it.
It was so hard to watch. I felt very uncomfortable. But man, fair play to him, you know.
Yeah, don't do that, Becky. I want to see. Actually, I saw you. You know, I met you for 1 second. Sasha introduced me to you at the after party right at the end of the night. It was the first time I ever saw you, and you had a big black eye that you had just gotten a couple hours earlier. So I don't want you to have a series of those. So let's keep it. I know I'm more comfortable with Becky Lynch, the professional wrestler.
Me too, to be honest with you. I remember I did a boxing class, actually I did like a few, but I remember sparring one time and like a guy smacked me right in the nose and I was just like, what is this? No, none of that.
Why? Well, and I'm going to tell you something right now. I don't know if I've ever actually said this on the podcast, and it's so funny because I say it in real life all the time. So I interview a lot of fighters. I interview boxers and UFC people, and sometimes they're really blah interviews. And to me, the reason that is, I love pro wrestling because I love athleticism, but I love characters. And whatever it is that makes a fighter willing to go in and potentially, like, really fight to the death, that little thing in their brain versus, yeah, I want to kind of do that, but I really just want to entertain people. It's that little missing switch in one's brain that is the difference between what can be a very boring fighter to talk to and a very interesting professional wrestler to talk to. Does that make sense?
That makes loads of sense. And also, work that they have to put into cutting weight.
Oh.
No. None of that.
No. It's not for me. Also, by the way, I got to tell you, Becky, and I don't want to be remotely inappropriate here. I never found myself really, I said this on the podcast, and I felt like, for considering I'm Mr. Women's Division, I felt like a bit of a chauvinist. But I'd never really appreciated a kind of jacked woman before until Becky Lynch came along. You are doing something really. You're doing something very. Like, I never seen a woman's arms that were jacked and been like, "Yo, that's really hot." But you managed to pull off being jacked and hot very well simultaneously.
Becky Lynch is not coming back now.
Very much.
Please. That's the best compliment I gave all day. Listen, Becky, when you get a lot of tweets about this show, people will be tweeting you and saying the word M-A-J. They're going to be like, Becky was mage. Becky was mage. Just know that that's our lingo, and it's a huge compliment because you are mage, and you're killing it. So thank you so much for making time to talk to us.
I just have one question before you go. What did you do to celebrate when you won the title?
What did I do to celebrate? Gosh. I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. I never really celebrate things. Cause it's kind of like, I don't know. I'll get to like one goal where I've accomplished it, but it's like, all right, that I got there, but the hard work starts now. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, that's very good, but let me go on to the next thing. You know what I mean? No, that just sounds kind of,
well, it sort of goes against some of what you like. In one sense, I totally get it because everyone who makes it far, the second you get one new gig, like one thing pops up, you're like, oh my god, well now I need the next thing. That's the difference. That's why people make it. But on the flip side of that, you got to have a moment when you stop and look at that belt for a second, and whether it's just having a slice of pizza and drinking a beer, some moment where you go, all right, this is pretty damn good. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. There's been those moments, but I don't actually do anything to celebrate. So, like, the celebration is actually getting it. And the celebration is just realizing that all your hard work is paid off. But I'm not one to throw parties or anything like that. But I did actually have a piece of... I went and I watched Hands of Stone. Have you seen that movie?
Hands of Stone? Yeah.
Yeah. With Robert De Niro?
Mm-hmm. The fighting movie? Oh, the whatchamacallit, the Sugar Ray movie?
Yes.
So your celebration, your big title celebration was watching a movie about fighting?
Yeah. And it was really good. And I had a slice of cake from, like, my favorite cake place, and it was so good. It tasted even better. So that was it, yeah. And then as well, like, so I went for breakfast the following morning, and I was just by myself, and so I write a lot, and, you know, like, it's crazy because I've kept journals my entire life, and you go from, like, oh, I really want this, I really want this, I really want this, and then you freaking write down, well, I got it, you know what I mean? And then I was just like, and so I kind of like started jumping up and down to myself. Like,
well, so I guess
on my own.
So I guess when you gave us that awesome promo about the person's biography, which I expect to see on TV one day, there actually will be a Becky Lynch biography one day because it's getting written page by page every day. Becky, thank you so much. We'll see you down the road, and congratulations on everything.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you so much.
All right, cheers. There she is, the SmackDown Women's Champion, Becky Lynch. Well, if you weren't in love with Becky Lynch previously, you are now.
Yeah.
Did you hear the excitement with which she answered?